Hello everyone, bringing you another BM Hunter Mythic Plus commentary for The War Within Season 3. This time we're looking at Halls+21, just under 16 mil overall, so let's see how we got there. So in this first pull, what I like to do is I MD the tank, then I'll Black Arrow the Houndmaster while using pet passive on my pet, and then like try to multi-dot some barb shots and cast more Black Arrows as we go along, with the goal being of generating some quiver stacks, which is the purple number here, my Call of the Wild Sigar, before we actually get into the pull. And not like, and you know, as we're building up the pull, I'm just sending normal rotation until the Houndmaster joins the pull, and only then do I Lasdt and send my cooldowns. There's no point in sending cooldowns before everything is actually stacked up. At least if you're only going to get one cooldown for the pack. If it's a situation where you think you might use 2 cooldowns for the pack, then you can send the first cooldown early to get the most possible value out of the second one. Generally on this pack, you prefer to use Survival of the Fittest on the AoEs. If you are about to get shot by the Houndmaster while you are during the AoE, then you would feign that as quickly as possible. You need to have pretty quick reactions to do that though, but there's like a targeted spell Sigar in my UI pack that will let you know about that. You can also find it on Wargo. If you're just about to get shot outside of the AoE, unless you're extremely low HP, I wouldn't really feign those. What will kill you here are overlaps. So focus your attention on preventing overlaps and let the healer heal the rest. Here I tried to survive without Survival of the Fittest and I ended forcing an exile. It ended up being fine, but I probably should have sent Survival of the Fittest on that second one there. But the thing is, we're going straight into another shot on the very second pull here. Before we can continue this pull, we always kill the Houndmaster. And the Gargants, we just have a Druid knock down off this platform. You can also bursting shot to do that. If you don't have a Druid, you'll see right there, they get like bonked. Well, he kind of messed it up, I think, so they end up coming in later. But what would normally happen is the Druid is supposed to use his knock, and that way these remaining Gargants join the pack. One thing I like to do here is I sort of I call my pets to me by spamming my pet passive macro. And then I cut this corner pretty tight right here so that they take, you know, this sort of path. If you just jump down straight, what I found is that the pets will often like go around here, but they won't pick, you know, they won't cut the corner. They'll go like the long way around here. They'll go like here and then here. And that will often mean that they will pull the slasher if it's active, and that can be bad news. So for safety in that regard, and without having to fully dismiss pet, I just kind of like get here, cut this corner, pet passive, and then, you know, cuts down and I'm safe. On this pack, I MD the tank as soon as possible, and then we pull this Houndmaster, once again trying to multi-dot barb shot as much as possible before we pull in the shot, which is when I'll be popping my cooldowns. Mouse over Black Arrow on the front target here, mostly because this Houndmaster is out of sort of range of everything. But you can see I'm still like multi-dotting barb shot on these, which is the green teal color on the nameplates in my UI. Just kind of building up Black Arrow stacks by the quiver and everything. And then once everything is stacked, that's when I'll like give one last frenzy refresh and then send the last Black Arrow, and then we go for my cooldowns. And here once again on the very first one, I'm not sending CDs. Always multi-dotting on big pulls like this. You should always be multi-dotting barb shot, and the way you prioritize barb shot relative to kill command is that if barb shot is on 2 charges, then you always prioritize it over kill command on AoE only. On single target, you pretty much never prioritize barb shot over kill command. But in AoE, you do partly for more frenzy value, which helps our beast cleave, but also just for straight up you know, multi-dotting prowess, so many more beast cleave for die beasts. And yeah. Another thing here is that there will be a collector in this pack. So what I said earlier about like feigning if you have a shot combined with the AoE, that still holds true, but you can also feign collector casts that can happen, like the channels that happen on you. If you feign those, that's equivalent to an interrupt on them, so you can do that as well. But the thing is, they're usually like hard assigned stops for them, so you're usually better served feigning the Houndmaster shots here. Once again, we are not really finishing off these. We finish off the collector for the most part, but the Gargants we just pull into the next pack, and once again, I'll be responsible for another Houndmaster kick. You'll pretty much, like, you should always be responsible for a Houndmaster kick in these dungeons whenever there's a Houndmaster in the pack. And here, once again, the limiting factor for us continuing this pull, here I had to like chase them up a little bit to be in range for the Houndmaster. The limiting factor to us continuing this dungeon is going to be killing these Houndmasters in time. One thing I also noticed, like at the very start of my cooldowns here, something pretty tilting happens that like it tilted me just to watch it, which is that I just sent my cooldowns, on this Houndmaster here, and then it going into my Black Arrow, of course, but it just jumps out in such a way that my Black Arrow, like circle and cone, doesn't actually hit everything else. You can see this one has a fresher Black Arrow dot on it than the rest, and I just missed out on a super powerful like Black Arrow on all these targets, and just watching it again was pretty upsetting. And here you can actually see that even though I keep targeting this Houndmaster, because I know that it's the limiting factor to us finishing this dungeon, or this pack I should say, I am like sort of a Black Arrow mouse overing the rest here. So I'll main target one, but to make sure that I don't miss any Black Arrow coverage, if it's not stacked, then I'll mouse over the sort of center of gravity of the pack. And once I see that another Houndmaster is the highest HP mob, I'll target that, but you can see I circle, because it's jumped a little bit out of the pack, right? So, because I don't trust that Black Arrow's circle will be enough to catch everything, I go around it here, making sure that my Black Arrow will go through and hit everything else here. So, that's the end of this pack. And here we are. And next pack, so once again, we're just taking these Gargants into the next pack, and if you can believe it, it's another sort of Houndmaster pull here, so I will be focus targeting, or like at least focus kicking the Houndmaster over here, which is the far one. I think, so I'll move over to it because he uses grip. So the DK uses grip for the cross one over here. So what I'll do is I'll go over and I'll use bursting shot as like a grip from Teemu on that one to get it a little bit closer. It's still not sufficient, and now I don't really have any. If I had a high explosive trap, I could have done the rest of the way. Maybe I should have done that. But yeah, it eventually joins the pack, and once again, the limiting factor for us killing this pack is actually killing this caster right here, the Obliterator. And that's because once this dies, we're going to grip in an Obliterator from up here. So that Obliterator dies, and while I wait for the next Obliterator to join the pack, I'm hitting Houndmaster. So once again, like circling around the pack when it jumps out, making sure that I'm always aiming my Black Arrow cones when targets are spread a little bit. Once this new Obliterator joins the pack, that's what I'll be focusing on. But still, aggressively multi-dotting and all that stuff. Here, with two Houndmasters in, double shots can be quite dangerous. So that's something to be aware of here. There's lots of things that can sort of hit you here. So that's, sometimes you get double shot. It's one of the hardest packs to survive, actually, because you can see I'm kind of getting just back, 3 shots back to back, forcing me to use Survival of the Fittest right there. Staying on top of my kick here, just focusing this Obliterator down because we cannot continue until it dies. And then once the Obliterator dies, then we finish off the Houndmasters that we've been carrying since the beginning of the pack, and then we can actually start chaining the rest of this pack. It's a very chain-heavy dungeon. Alright, here we are. But once again, just because we're chaining and everything, I'm still going to be hitting this as much as possible to build up, Quiver stacks I'm already maxed on, but there are Prism stacks, all of this stuff. You should never have any downtime even when you're just gathering a pack up. So what I'll do here is that I'll MD a little bit early. Remember to always Hunter's Mark these shards. I'm assigned to kicking, you guessed it, it's another Houndmaster, and this one is coming from quite far back, so I'm making sure that I don't position myself too left here so that I'm lining the kick. So right here, I'll dip out, do the kick, make sure it joins the pack, and then I'm mid CDs, and now we're doing very similar rotation to before. In our cooldowns, prioritizing 2 charges of Barb Shot over Kill Command, but otherwise prioritizing Kill Command. And obviously playing around the Black Arrow Weak Aura, the one that you can see right here above my my Beast Cleave timer that turns red occasionally. That's what I'm staring at during my cooldowns, making sure that when it's red, I'm spamming nothing but Black Arrow as fast as humanly possible. This pack is very similar to the first 2 shots, not really anything new to it. Survival of the Fittest is your preferred line of defense against AoEs. The main thing you're worried about are overlaps between AoEs and shots. Also stay in the airflow here. And usually you can send a second Beast of the Wrath here. And once this dies, not much else to it. We finish the Collector and Houndmaster here. And then I gotta go to Zimbabwe now. So I just dip at this point. Because I'm supposed to go grab the, what do they call, the Groundskeepers from the very far side of this whole room. So we disengage off the platform, we cheetah, we run all the way. It's a bit of an adventure here. Destroying my overall in the process, unfortunately, but it's for a good cause. So we just, no MD or anything, we just Black Arrow those, and then we turn back. And then we sort of meet here in the middle, and we pull all of these Groundskeepers from over there, from back up there. These collectors as well, all into the boss. And we have 18 stacks of prism for this because we've been holding Prism for quite a while. And this is probably the biggest pull of the whole dungeon. So, Black Arrow here. Don't forget to Hunter's Mark the boss. Dot everything up with Black Arrow before we send our cooldowns, and off we go. No Lasdt or anything. So here it's important that you just stay on top of collector kicks, whichever one you're assigned to. And just do a tremendous amount. Like, we've got 23 targets up during our cooldowns here. I've peaked like 100 million DPS here. I don't know what I'm going to end up doing in this particular pack. I think like 80 mil or so, but yeah, you sometimes you end up like proccing a little bit harder, and you can do like 100 mil here. Also, if you start the pack a little bit sooner. Pretty fun stuff. What's also important here is I have this Sigar as part of my UI pack that tells me when I need to use a binding shot. It basically reads all the groundskeeper nameplates, and when they're about to drop below X amount of HP, it basically prompts me to binding, and you can see a binding there, so that even as they start running away, they stay there for longer, and then you also have the Druid's Vortex in, and they actually stay there for like quite a long time. Because, we're like a minute into, 40 seconds into this boss, and you still have almost 20 targets going, so a tremendous amount of AoE here. Extremely important to be multi-dotting Barb Shot. But it's not actually that hard overall. It looks scary, but it's scary for the tank, I'm sure. But for us, it's actually kind of chill. We just have to focus on our kicks, do a binding shot well, and then just do a good rotation. Not much else to it. Defensive usage on this boss is really only if you notice that you're lower HP than expected for the AoEs here. Otherwise, you don't really have to worry about defensives for the most part. Like, you just have to trust the healer at a certain point that, even though I can see my health ticking up here, I can see the AoE coming in, like, I trust the healer in that scenario. Alright, here we are. And so once the collectors die, then it's generally the hunter's job to MD pull the Obliterator over there. Usually you do it after this AoE here. And so it'll be my job to both pull and kick that Obliterator over there and pull it into the boss. So that's what you're going to see happen here in a moment after this circle. So I turn around, have a Black Arrow ready, MD, turn around again and just focus kick it, because I already set my focus target beforehand. Keep multi-dotting. Both the Dark Blade, both the boss, and the Obliterator. And on we go. Alright, so here we are. Not much else to it, really. Boss just kind of repeats, and we just move it along, do the circles here. Keep kicking. Pretty boring boss past a certain point. I use my last CDs here. Sometimes it's a wonder if you should save, but I really didn't feel the need to save here. My next pull is quite big as well. It's moderately dangerous as well, but Aleez is not bad either. I mean, the ideal case is that you have a big prism for the next pull, but the cooldowns just didn't end up lining up with that in this dungeon, so here we are. Okay, here we go. Pull is over. Well, boss is over. Yeah, so we're not going into the hottest set of CDs here. We'll have a potion, we'll have an Aleez, we have 8 stacks of prism. So this will be an okay set of CDs. I focus mark the Obliterate over here because I'm assigned to the first kick. We Hunters mark the first Reaver here. And we wait for everything to sort of get gathered up with the other Reavers before we send our cooldowns and Lasdt and everything. And roughly now is when we like to Lasdt. And so what I'm keeping an eye on here for survivability are these debuffs that you get from the jumpers here. You don't want to dwarf unless you have pretty high number of stacks on it. So 3, 4, 5 stacks is when you should think about using dwarf. But the thing is, we actually pull another set of them shortly thereafter. So, but yeah, definitely dwarf extremely OP for this pull here. The DK unfortunately dies. I'm not quite sure what actually kills him. Because it's not a cast. I think that he just get jumped a tremendous amount of times. I honestly have no idea what kills him. Because he just dies out of nowhere, seemingly. And it's not a cast or anything. But yeah. Gives us a bit of extra AoE to do. And once again, but it also means the ankle biters live longer. They apply more stacks. 2 stacks is quite survivable though. And I do have a Survival of the Fittest used and another one ready if I need to. And the next pull is technically a boss pull, sort of. So you'll see in a moment here. Once we finish off these Reavers, which are the limiting factor here, you can see I didn't do a tremendously high burst in this. If I'd held my CDs on boss, I could have done more. But then the boss would have taken much longer and, could have been a higher overall if I padded a bit more for overall. But in this case, I think I played it how you should play it as well if you're pushing this key. So more ankle biters, and once again, no CDs here, so these will actually live quite a long time, so we have to be super vigilant about how many stacks we build up. As you can see, 2 stacks is quite survivable. 4 stacks is where things really start to hurt, I would say. And here we are. Now we pull in these next groundskeepers. And then we sort of thread the needle between these 2 packs here. You just kind of find the center point, move between them. And then we pull these next groundkeepers as well. And what you'll notice is that as we're gathering, I'm still just sending my rotation, multi-dotting barb shot, building up my black arrow stacks here. You don't want to DPS them too hard, but we do so little DPS outside of our CDs, it doesn't tend to matter. What you don't want is you don't want to DPS them so low that they start running everywhere before you actually pull them to the boss. And that's what's happening next. So now we're hitting this Obliterator, cleaving off of that, just kind of tickling things down, building up barb shots, building up black arrow stacks. And once this slasher goes, to stone, then we're going to like kick and we're going to drag everything up and do this with the boss. Because right now we're just kind of in this holding pattern. It's been quite a long time. Maybe we could have sent another CD, but there was just no real good time to do it because you just straight up don't want to send too much damage on these. But yeah, DK grips it across. And as soon as the boss is pulled, we swap to it with the boss frame. We send Hunter's Mark on it. Here I make probably the biggest mistake of the dungeon, which is that I send this CD with a Raz, even though I have 18 stacks of Prism. That's a huge blunder right there, and what I really should have done, what would have been really important, probably pushed it above 60 mil overall, would have been to send my Prism on this particular CD, because it's a much bigger one than the second CD. So just looking at that makes me really depressed, but hopefully you can learn from my mistake right there. Other stuff to note here is that once these adds spawn, you are in combat with them, and your Withering Fire, your Black Arrow, will consider them to be, prime targets for your Withering Fire arrows. And what you'll see me do here is that when they spawn, I move sort of backwards here, so that as many of them are in my line of sight as possible. And now you can see these Black Arrows are starting to go everywhere. If I was standing closer, they wouldn't be going into my main target. Instead, they would just not fire at all. So huge DPS increase to sort of stand back here, put everything in line of sight. Now, for when they die here, also we throw down a binding shot for all these smallies here. Or we're supposed to, but I actually pop my... What you'll notice here is that this leap mechanic is inconsistent with working with turtle. So you can see here I pre-turtle, but I already know that there's a pretty good chance that turtle just straight up won't work on it. And indeed, it doesn't. I don't know if there's a consistent way of getting turtle to work here. I've tried doing it super early, super late. I've never gotten turtle to work reliably for this. Sometimes it works like 5 times in a row and I think I've nailed it. And then it just completely turns around and yeah, it sucks. But yeah, what to say about it is if you don't, so you always be prepared for turtle not working. If it doesn't, that's when you pop Excel and Survival of the Fittest generally. In my case, I just pop Survival of the Fittest, but I have a really good healer, and you can see I almost still die anyway. What you also want to do is move back into the airflow of the Resto Druid, if you have such a, or Healing Rain Resto Shaman, as soon as you can. Okay, second set of ads on this fight will line up naturally with your cooldowns here, but what we also like to do in really high keys is that we like to trap one of these ads. I'm not sure if I'm doing it here. Yeah, I do. So I trap the spawn location of one of these ads, and that's one less explosion that the healer will have to heal when everything dies at roughly the same time here. And here we pop our cooldowns, once again standing back in such a way that everything is sort of within our line of sight. And once everything is about to get a bit low, that's when I pop my Survival of the Fittest, get in the AMS here. And now you can see one less explosion we have to deal with, and then we can always break the trap afterwards. And that makes everything a bit easier. Once again, I get the mechanic here. No turtle to help me out. I only have Exil here, so what I'm going to do is I basically get pushed back, Exil into the airflow, and communicating with the healer makes a big difference there as well. What you can also do safely here is actually you can get away with just feigning this one. And maybe I should have done that. The second one of the fight you can feign, because you will get the other one in time to hit the other ad. So if you don't have turtle for that, and honestly I would say to feign it. You just have to be a little bit quick about it. Next set of ads we don't have CDs for, but we do our best. And once again, we have trapped one of the ads over in the corner there. And we pop a Survival of the Fittest when everything's starting to get low. If you're playing with a Frost DK, they will usually have CDs for this set. So even though you don't have CDs here, you can expect them to die rather quickly. And now we're going to send our last CD of this particular fight. And yeah, not much else to it. Like, there will be a set of ads that spawn, but I don't even think we fully kill them. Like, they come in here. I trap one just because, but the boss dies before the ads do. So there we are. Okay. And also you can see here I feign this because we don't need this last leap to do anything. So as soon as I get it, I feign. And it stops the cast, but I still get the stun, but that doesn't really matter as long as we don't get hit. Okay, next pack here. Usually melee are supposed to focus the Handmasters while we focus the Eviscerator. And the reason for that is that we are more positionally constrained by our AoE damage abilities. And so we don't really like to focus the Handmasters because they jump out here. But we don't mind focusing the Eviscerator. So that's generally what we focus here. We're paying attention to any overlaps between shoots mainly and the glaives that these Eviscerators do. Here you can see that the healer actually instantly dies from basically 100. Straight up just killed because I think he gets a shot on him. I think, is that a shot? Yeah, this shot goes through on him combined with a glaive from one of the Eviscerators. And that just kills him outright. And that's exactly what we're looking out for. If you are about to get an incoming shot, you pretty much always use the defensive here if you can. And starting with Exil, then Survival of the Fittest, and always stay in the healer's F-flow right here. Other than that, focus Eviscerator, followed by the other Eviscerator. A little bit slow to retarget here because I'm looking around for the nameplate because I was worried about my HP for a moment there, but we eventually find it. So you kill the Eviscerators, then you kill the Handmasters, and then you can actually already chain at this point. So just like this. And now I focus on the Reaver because it's the one that's guaranteed to be stacked here. But we focus, we send off the Handmaster here, probably should have swapped to it a little bit sooner, and then we start chaining once that is done. Here we usually assign to kick in the Obliterator, so we sign ourselves up for that. And once again, just because we're building up to the next pull, my rotation is still going strong, right? I'm not stopping for anything. Everything is still going on. I'm hitting the highest HP target I can find. And here we are. Use the boss frame, Hunter's Mark the boss, swap to the boss, refresh Frenzy, and then we send our cooldowns right here. Okay, this boss, there's there's a little bit of a trick we can do. This boss really hurts. So this main thing to know about this boss is that you have to get this ad into the canisters early. You cannot, you have to be pre-positioned. It has to just walk in a straight line to where it needs to go. You cannot be dilly-dallying in any way. The first time you get a debuff on this fight, you dwarf it. And then I'll show you what I do on the second set of debuffs here. Because the thing is, you can pre-turtle that debuff. You can't know for sure if you will get it, at least to my knowledge. But you can pre-turtle it. And so how do I do that? Well, I essentially just look around. Well, so basically, if you don't want to turtle alongside the DK AMSing, he can use this AMS to pre-immune it as well. We don't want to overlap our turtle with that. But the unstable anima timer here on my UI is the timer for the debuffs going out, as you can see. And so what I'll do is that once about to hit 0, I turtle, I wait for the debuff to go out, it hits only the druid, and now it would have gone on me, but I pre-immuned it. Now he has one less debuff to heal, and everyone's much happier. Because that's a healing resource that he will need later, because the boss can get pretty rough later on. If you haven't played the ads absolutely perfectly, then sometimes there won't be any candy stop for when the ad spawns, and that can make it very, very healing intense towards the end of the fight. This is a very common way to deplete this dungeon. And it sucks because the rest of the dungeon is actually fairly easy, so depleting here sucks. But yeah, that's pretty much the fight here. Usually, you don't use defensives for every debuff, you just kind of stand in the F-flow. Only when the ad is up at the same time as you having a debuff do you send a Survival of the Fittest, in my experience. But of course, you should always be already looking at your health and using defensive if needed. That's not a hard and fast rule, but it's a good rule of thumb. So now you can see we get the debuff, or rather we get the ad spawn, and I'm pre-positioned for the canister, I send it in. Other than that, not much to this fight, honestly. Just kind of single target rotation. And here we are. And I send the last CD there, just so boss dies roughly as our CDs come off CD, right? So now we're ready to go into the next one, and that will be with 13, 14 prism stacks, which is pretty good. Now, I'm super upset about how my group does this, but they insist on doing it. So the big problem for BM Hunter in this one is that your Withering Fire arrows from your Black Arrow during your cooldowns are like these heat-seeking missiles that seek out any target that does not have the Black Arrow dot on them already. If you are out of range of, at least a little bit out of range of, or if those targets are not in your line of sight, then those Withering Fire arrows are not intelligent enough to pick other targets. They will fail to fire. So the way we, so this is basically a worst case scenario for me, because we spawn it right here, and I'm about to send my cooldowns into this thing here. None of this is dotted, like there's like 2 dotted ones here. The problem is, if I stand back here, then yes, my Withering Fire arrows will be able to chase these ads, but they won't be able to reach these. So really, the way you want to tank this is you're much better off trying to tank it like back here or as far back in the room as you can. But the thing is, it's a little bit of a competing motivations thing, because the other, like your DH and your DK, if you're playing with those, they kind of want to be in the center of the room where most of the ads come, because they use those for funnel. But you basically have anti-funnel, which is that, you know, the way you position in here destroys your DPS. Anyway, as soon as the buff comes out here, we Lasdt, we send our CDs, and you can see here I should really be much, much further back in the room. I think I'm so frustrated by how we position, because as you can see, as soon as I move back here, my Withering Fire's arrow are going there. Those are what failed to fire early on, and you can see I'm doing so little damage here, even though I'm in like a big prism. So if you're positioning like we do, I would like stand way back here when you pop your cooldowns and not move back here so slowly. But my logic was that I wanted to be in the front of the room early on, so that my initial Withering Fires would go back there, which they do, and then I go back here later in my CDs, and then they will go for the front ones. But I do think that if I'm outranging them properly, if I stand here from the beginning, maybe that will work out better. I haven't worked out the best way to play around the way we position. The best way, like if you are the group shot caller and you can just pick everything for yourself, then the best way to actually do it is you pull the boss way up here. And then your Withering Fire will only go into Sigar, and you can kill it much, much quicker. So I don't really think that the way we do this is the optimal way. I think we could have easily killed it a cycle faster if we'd done it properly. Because I'm literally doing half of the DH's DPS because my DPS is so destroyed by this. But yeah, Sigar dies, and once again, you know, you just kind of keep going your rotation here, building up barb shots, blighted quiver stacks, and so on. And once again, we sort of lean into the boss, we target the boss, Hunter's Mark, we get around the boss so that our Black Arrow cone will go through it and hit the incoming ads here. But of course, we always send all of our Black Arrows before actually popping our cooldowns. And here we are. And now what I like to do is I kind of just circle, like I kite my ad through and into the boss so that it's in the range of my AoE at all times. You can also binding shot here, but I didn't want to use the GCD in my cooldowns. I'd rather just move because I'm a BM hunter. And yeah, that's about it. This dungeon, this last boss, there's not much to it. You use your defensives on the statue combinations. On 21, I've noticed that your pet takes like full damage from these statues moving. And if it receives absolutely no healing from your healer, it can actually die from it. So what I like to tell my healer here is just put a rejuve or like some healing over time on my pet, just so that it doesn't die from that. Because you can see here, it takes like 60% of its HP. And if it gets no healing, it'll die in the next one. You can see how I think it gets really... Yeah, sometimes it doesn't get hit, but I'm not quite sure how it works. It might be the Erupting Torment and not the statue moves that does it. But yeah, other than that, this boss just kind of plays itself. You use defensives here. It doesn't quite one-shot... Well, it doesn't one-shot with defensive, so you're fine. And yeah, other than that, there's not really much to the fight. Just do a clean single-target rotation. And that is how you do this dungeon. So the overall ended up being... around like 15.8 or so. If we skip to the end, we can probably find it. Yeah, just about 15.8 there. As you can see, there were some mistakes that probably could have pushed this to a 16 mil, particularly with cooldown usage on a second boss, and probably playing better on the final mini-boss. But overall, a pretty solid run. I hope this was useful for you. And if you like this kind of stuff, then make sure to like, comment, subscribe. And if you like my UI that you see in this video, then check out my Twitch or Patreon and subscribe there. And you can get access to all my Hunter Week auras and my UI, everything that you see on screen pretty much. So yeah, peace.